Now we go to the main part of the question, which is about the pseudocode and working with ascending order, working with the swap method. So let's go through together to read it. All the data stored in memory should be sorted in ascending order of total score using selection sort. So you are focusing on the total score table. For example, after sorting, the data given opposite will be held in memory. So construct an algorithm that will sort all the data in ascending order. In your solution, you should call method swap and the swap rows given in part A and part B. So this is an advice for the student. It will not be given by the, in the exam, just to keep in mind. First, in any kind of pseudocode you're writing, define your swap method, because most of them will have a swap method. Define the length of your array and know what are your nested loop will go through. Know what is the columns, what are your rows, what are your columns. Okay, so the first one always in your nested loop will be for the entire array, and the second one will be for the comparison. Now for the marking scheme for this question, you will have an award for the correct outer loop. So for example, here we know that we are looping through the total array, and then correct determination of the minimum and the position of the smallest element in part array total. Range should be from j plus 1 to 5. And then correct what is your correct condition to check whether swap are needed or not. Correct swap of element in array totals, and correct swap of element in array players, and correct swap of row and 2-dimension array round. All right. So that will be marking scheme. Just a reminder, this is our table or matrix. We have the player, rounds, and total, and we are sorting according to the totals. So we start by bringing back the method we are giving. So we have the swap method for A and B, and we have the swap rows, so giving the matrix and the K and L, the rows as well. So for index from 0 to length of mat K, and then -1, as I said before, when you say -1, because your index always, your array is indexed 0 index, so you don't want to go over the length of the array, so you always say from 0 to -1, the length of the array -1. And then you are doing the swap mat of K and index, mat and index, and for loop and end of method. So here you are just bringing it back, so you can call it when needed. For the algorithm that you need to do is to sort game data. So you are giving the players table, the round table, and the total table, or the players, let's say array, rounds array, and the totals array. So that will be your input, and the output you need them the same but sorted based on the total in ascending order. The first thing you need to know or to define is to define the length of your array to show that you are, and always get to the habit of commenting your pseudocode. Even if your naming conventions is very clear, that will always help the examiner to make sure that you understand and you convey the pseudocode in the right way. So here, n equal the length of totals, determine the number of players, yeah, and to go through the length of your array. Then you construct your nested loop. So first you start with the outer loop for I from 0 to n minus 1. What you want to do? You want to first to define your minimum. Remember, we are talking and we need to always find our minimum value. So the first element in the array is our minimum value until we explore the rest. So assume the minimum as the current index, and then find the smallest element in the unsorted part of totals. So we go now with the comparison loop, which is the inner loop. So we go from j from I plus 1. Remember, I told you before, j always is the next element, so it is I plus 1 to n minus 1. And then you go like this. We are still talking in the totals because that's what we are trying to sort. So if total of j, yeah, less than the total of minimum index, which is actually I at the moment here. So what do we want to do? We want to now, if it's less than, then we want to take the value of j and place it in the minimum index. So the new value of the minimum index is j if j has the value less than of I. And end of a statement. So that will be your correct condition, and this is iterate through the array for the comparison only, and also placing the value of the minimum value in the array to know what to do, whether to swap or not. So once you have this, once the iteration over the array completed for comparison, now the outer loop here this one, we swap if the new minimum index does not equal to I. So swap element and rows if smaller element is found. Remember, we are not going to sort only the totals. We need to, based on what we are sorting in totals, the round and players has to follow so they don't get mixed up. So as remember in the previous part of the question when we were checking for Boris, since Boris is in the first array in the first row, so when we are looking for Boris achievement in the rounds, we have to look also in the first row, and similar for the total. So we don't swap only the total, we swap accordingly or in sequence the other array. So here, if the minimum index does not equal to I, then you do the swap for the total of I with the minimum index, and swap the player of I with the minimum index, and swap of rounds I with the minimum index. Yeah. So just make sure that that's what you are doing. And then here, that's end of the loop and end of your end of the condition and end of the for loop. Okay, so remember this iteration, this swapping, let's say not iteration, this swapping occurs in the outer loop, not in the inner loop. The inner loop, you only check the value of the next element and the next element, and you do it, you go through all the array once. So here I'm checking, for example, J, I find it 3, remember? So 3, I compare it to 5, to 4, to 2, to 1. So that's here happening only here. Once you do compare through, once you do compare through the entire array once, you find now what is the new minimum item, so you set it, and if it's the new minimum item, you need to swap it in the right place. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed and you've benefited from this recording. Please let us know how did we do by like, share and subscribe. Comment on the code if you want further exam questions and if you want further explanation in certain topics, and if you require one-to-one help, please make your free consultation booking to discuss what are your learning aim, what are you aiming to achieve at Calendly, my booking page, Calendly Knowledge is Power Academy London. Thank you very much and have a good day.